floor is yours.
Okay. Well, you know, I guess by telling you these experiences, and they're experiences, they're not stories. Um, you know, it leads to the deeper question. There are some things that we cannot fully explain, and there are wonders of this world and this universe in particular, that we'll all find out one day. We'll all know the full story one day if we are, if we are fortunate enough to make it to heaven. And I would suggest that all the listeners out there, do everything in your power, to make that trip. That is one bus ride you don't want to miss, folks. You definitely don't want to catch the other bus going south. And I don't mean down to South Carolina. I'm talking about deep south into the deep pits of hell, because that can happen. And these two Iraqis, while they were devout, radical Islamic extremists, they believed in an afterlife. They do believe in an afterlife. They do believe in a heaven. They do believe, they call it paradise. That's the term they use, paradise. And they have been confused by opportunists, ayatollahs and different titles that they go by, dictators that have come in and utilized the fact that they were undereducated. They're not totally uneducated, but many of them are undereducated, which I mean they learned how to read and write and to do the basic things, but they didn't learn to think on their own. They didn't learn to evaluate things. So when you see things or you hear things, as Americans in particular, North Americans, I'll just say that because I know a lot of Canadians that think the same way. We have an opportunity here to kind of think about that, kind of make a decision. Nobody forces us into a certain religion or a certain belief system. But now people will attack you for certain beliefs. They'll attack you for certain stories, especially on social media. But you have to be tougher than that. Remember, Jesus Christ went to the cross for us and bore every pain, every sin, everything in the evil, wicked, vile thing in the world. He bore all of that, okay, for us. So we can take a few bad comments on Twitter, Facebook, and all you haters out there that might hate on Greg and Val and myself. You're really making zero impact on. You're not going to deter this mission. Okay. So let me just go on back.
Amen.
I'm telling you, they're not going to deter this mission. This mission will go on, and God be with us every step of the way. And who can be against us then, right?
That's right.
So the Iraqis, the worst thing that they could face is not going to paradise. And, they live a horrible existence, The people, they struggle day to day to find food, to find shelter, to find peace. There is no peace in the Middle East, and there hasn't been. Okay, as long as I can remember, there's always been some war or violence, mainly violence that they put upon each other. But they do have one thing, and that is their faith. So something spoke to their hearts, spoke to their bodies physically, that both of them saw and were able to identify, and clearly they drew pictures of these things. Okay, I can draw the pictures of these things that they saw. I can tell you what they said, but ultimately it come down to this: their biggest fear was going to hell, and these things told them, you are going to hell if you don't stop what you're doing. Period. End of subject. And that terrified them worse than death itself. So they were willing to come out, follow this command, to go forward, to quit, to surrender, to stop, to give this up.
Captain,
and let me just refocus. Let me just refocus that. They were, it's an intentional pause. they saw that the pathway they were on had a very bad ending, but they could get on another pathway. They still followed Islam, okay? They still mentioned Allah. They still followed their religion, but they didn't follow the radicalized ideology. You know, we could all look at our religions and we could find a level of violence, where God sent, the soldiers of Israel out and they destroyed everything. Don't bring nothing back. Kill everything. Destroy it all, right? Every man, woman, chicken, pig, everything. Just get rid of it, okay? But ultimately, the one thing that we have is Jesus Christ, who come in and said, now hold on a second. I didn't come here to take away from the Old Testament. I come here to fulfill and to give you a message of peace and hope, and above all things, forgiveness. And when these two came to us, they came to us looking for forgiveness. You see, the Islamic people, the Muslims, they believe in Jesus Christ. They just don't believe that he is the Messiah. Same thing with my Jewish friends. The difference is the Jewish community doesn't go out and intentionally try to destroy the Christian community. And the only ones that are doing that are the people that are openly satanic or radical Islamic terrorists. That's who does that. Or Nazis, which we all had family members that fought against that fiasco. And I think that experience in Iraq, what it taught me was that, whether you want to identify it as a UFO, that's fine with me. But ultimately, it changed the perception and the ideas and the mindset of two very radical murderers that worked for, Al-Qaeda, the precursor to ISIS, Hamas, all of those wrapped into one. They were bad people. But it changed the way that they thought, and it changed the way that they did business, and it changed the way that they viewed us, and it definitely changed them. Have no idea where they're at. I'd love to be able to know where they're at. I'm sure they went to, Guantanamo Bay or someplace. But I have a picture of me with these two guys in the back of a truck. Two prisoners in the back of a truck. So I'll show that to you sometime.
I take dibs on that photo. Yeah. We got to get that published.
You got it, man. You got it. And the strange thing is I was standing up in the back of a truck, and in the back of that truck were these two guys that had openly surrendered, but in the truck underneath there were probably, it was a civilian truck that we commandeered, and it was filled with fish. So if you remember, it was filled with fish, fish that they'd caught. So what was the symbol that Christians used to use? Was the fish. And I literally looked down and I saw a fish that looked shaped like the Christian fish that you see. I mean, I'm telling you, there's a lot of things that if you pay attention, God gives you signs and signals. But you have to pay attention. You got to clear your mind of the nonsense. And you got to pay close attention. God will talk to your heart. God will talk to your head. And God will show you things. So I never thought about the fish thing. I always thought, I'm in the back of a truck with a bunch of fish. What did he feed the multitude? Fish and bread, right?
James and